All right. We are in the month of May and just amazed at how quickly life flies by.
Isn't that so true? Do we all feel that way? But some days, what do they say? Sometimes the days can be slow, the days can go slow and long, but the years fly by.
Yes, I had not heard. Had I heard it in that way before? I'm not sure, but that sounds right.
I've heard that before, that you can have sometimes this day that just drags on.
Drags on forever.
But then the years or the weeks
just
seem to fly by.
Hey, fellow streakers, how are you? It's Jeff and Jamie, and we are excited to start the month of May. Simply for the reason this month we are going to be focusing on streaking to improve performance. That's right. The theme this month is all about performance and improving performance. Last month we were talking about professional streaks and what you can do to apply streaking to your professional life. We'll continue that a little bit more into
Which I'm
the
glad,
month of
because
May.
I enjoyed talking about that a lot. I felt like there was a lot of application there.
Would you hire me? I mean, that's the question I have. Would you hire me?
You know
honey?
what? I definitely want to look at your resume and your streaks, and that is I will remember you, and yeah, I think I'll hire you.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. We did a mock interview where I shared with Jamie the streaks that I had in an interview type setting, and we had talked about how interesting it would be for a person who is being interviewed to say, here's my accomplishments. Now let me show you how we got to those accomplishments, and that's my streaks that are happening on a regular basis.
Let me show you the section of my resume that has my streaks. I also thought that would be an interesting thing to include on a college essay entrance. The essays that you often write to apply to a college is to share the streaks that you had. Would that be?
That would be exciting as well.
Also
so in other words, through high school, as you've done your studies and academic rigor toward doing what you want to do, that you have streaks that you've set along the way, and you say, here's my 3 or 4 streaks that I have to keep that along, and let me explain it in my essay.
Right.
Wow.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, that is interesting. What we're going to be doing, first of all, we started on our last podcast talking about June Converse book review, which was an independent book review that she had heard us on a podcast with Emily Aborn. Love Emily. Shout out to you, Emily. And
she does her own podcast.
Yes, she does her own podcast. She built this. Has a great podcast out there. Really fun to listen to. We enjoyed being on Emily's show. June was listening to that and heard us talk about streaking and decided to pick up the book. Mm-hmm. And she had an independent book review. Now we were going to talk about it the whole time last time, and I mentioned it several years.
I know, we get talking and sometimes we end this podcast, you guys, and we're like, we spent 2 minutes on what we talked about that we said we were going to talk about.
So we apologize if we're breaking our promise to you about not talking about the thing that we said we were going to, but we are today going to talk about June Converse book review, because there are so many really neat nuggets that she had as she picked up the book and read it for herself and started to apply it to what she does.
And I agree. I wanted to read it because she said the things that I say. I feel like, okay, someone else is saying it too.
But we didn't talk to her directly.
Read it through the book. She found it on her own. So I guess that's it. She had a similar experience. Mm-hmm. And so it was great to be like, see, this is what can happen. So the reason why we wanted to share this is we're curious as to your point of view. You know, as you've read the book and as you've started streaking, it's interesting to read June. June is an author, writes a blog, and therefore has been practicing and works diligently to express herself in words. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to see if you fellow streakers out there have had a similar experience. So with that, let's get into it. And as we mentioned last time, if you listened to the podcast last time, and by the way, if you're new, still growing every single month, we're just amazed at the number of listeners that continue to follow and be with us. Thank you very much. We believe in the streaking methodology. That's why we do this podcast, and we appreciate the opportunity to share with you. So if you listened last month, June talks about, first of all, the premise or the promises that we give right out of the chute in the book. That this is life-changing. That's a big one. The second one was, I forgot what she said.
You build intrinsic value.
Intrinsic value, yes.
That is impervious.
These are big words.
Yes.
Strong words. Maybe that's the word I'm saying.
Big and strong.
Impervious
to, and I love this. She pointed it out, and this was Chris McChesney wrote this in his foreword. Build intrinsic value that is impervious to your circumstance or environment. And we've talked a lot about that in streaking, how streaking is agnostic to environment or circumstance, because what you're doing is consciously putting a streak on a level that you are focused on keeping it going.
Yep.
So that was the second one. And then the third one, what was it? Oh, know the end from the beginning. You will have learned the laws that are necessary in order to bridge the gap between who you are and who you ultimately want to be.
Right. So here's what I loved about her book review to start off with, is that she read our book and was able to write, after reading the book, 3 things that she was doing, actionable things that she had started doing from reading the book. I really think that that's profound, that when you can read something that moves you to action, that's huge.
Yeah.
And then the methodology of streaking, the whole point is to have sustained action. And so that's one of...
So I want to go back there for just a second. You were pretty impressed by that, as far as that she was able to do that. And what you're referencing is she set 3 streaks right away.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. And she was able to tell us exactly what they were.
And you and I have talked about this, but I wanted to bring it out just a little bit more. That was significant to you because as you've read a book, say, for example, on any type of performance that you wanted to get better performance, and so you read a book about it. Let's say, for example, Atomic Habits or The Power of Habit or any number, I'm trying to think, Deep Work by Cal Newport, any one of those. Did you come away from that with a new habit immediately?
Right.
Is that where you're referencing?
That's what I'm saying. Mostly the habits books, because it's a pretty big leap to go from book to action. And when you are able to make that leap, I think that's significant.
Absolutely.
And so that is one of the things that is impressive to me with the methodology of streaking, is that we can learn the methodology and instantly have a way to actualize it.
Yeah.
To start.
Which is why we've had fellow streakers on the show,
right,
is because they've kept streaks. And that's why any of you out there, if you share with us your streak, we'd love to look at having you on the show so that we can talk with you about your experience and how you've been applying streaking, which is exactly what June did here.
Because we are inspired by other people's experiences, and because it's great to hear how other people are doing. So right out of the chute, she was able to say, probably the easiest way to describe streaking is to share my current streaks with you, which are: I will write 1 sentence in my journal every day, I will read 1 paragraph in a nonfiction book every day, and I will write 50 words of my own work, either in a novel or a nonfiction work or a blog, Monday through Friday. So she set what we want to try and add to the app, which is a work week streak, which
that
I
just
love.
Rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
A work
or
week
off the lips
streak.
Work week streak.
So in other words, a streak that you do in your work week.
Whatever that work week is, be it Monday through
is.
Friday, or be it, if it's a short work week, whatever the work week is, the consecutive thing is a work week streak.
So we're working diligently to understand
honestly,
how to add that to the app.
In the app, you can currently do that, actually. You can say that it's a weekly streak, and I'm going to do it 5 times this week for a work week streak. Now, we're going to get a little bit more specific
so
around
you
it.
can say which days.
But you can do it right now. I mean, the app has that ability right now. So you download the streaking app, set up a streak that is, a weekly streak that you do 5 times a week, and that's your work week streak.
Your work week streak. So I wanted to read what she said, because I feel like I've said these same things, and it was so great to have someone else say it.
Go ahead.
So she said, I know what you are thinking. A sentence a day is not progress. And it's amazing to me how hard, this is my talking now. She said, I know what you're thinking. A sentence a day is not progress. Then I'm interjecting here and saying, it is so hard for us to overcome that first law, to suspend that disbelief and make it laughably simple. Again and again and again, it's something we work hard to believe.
And I wanted to point out something here too in regards to performance as we start this new month of May performance. Notice she said a sentence a day is not progress. I think that's a belief that we all hold, is that something little is not progression.
It's not progression.
And how come? How come we think that something little is not progression? Because I've thought that. I mean, before we ever started streaking, I thought that, if I do this little thing, it's not progression.
I think the two things that we fight is, one, we don't believe we'll be consistent, because when we're not consistent, a little thing is just that. It's a little thing all there by itself. But when you add the consistency and a whole bunch of little things, it makes me think of, now I forgot the name of the movie, but the one with the grasshoppers and the ants.
Bug's Life.
Yes, A Bug's Life. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Where one little ant is one little ant, but 1,000 ants, that's a lot of ants.
Absolutely.
And so the concept being that one thing by itself is small and insignificant.
And therefore won't really produce the progress that you look at. But when those little things are all strung together.
In a chain of consecutive, consistent actions, it can be life-changing.
As is said in the subtitle, I love it. June says here, just a definition. She gives a quick definition of the 3 laws of streaking. She says, a simple activity, comma, a recorded completion equals a streak.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Did you see that up there? Just above her streaks
that.
Right there. She has it. She says, a simple action recorded equals a streak, which the 3 laws of streaking are: do something laughably small, record that you did it, and then create a community around it. All right.
Which is interesting, because she was saying that the community part was a little bit hard. However, in the writing, she's sharing with her community, which is exactly what happens with the streak, is that you want to share what you're doing with your community.
Absolutely. I think the community is something that we don't recognize. It's there, but we don't recognize it right away. And when you're being deliberate about recognizing the community, then what happens is you celebrate together.
Right. Okay, so back to what she said. Now I'm speaking June's words. I know what you are thinking. A sentence a day is not progress. I thought that too. Think about it. I was not writing in my journal at all. Now I've written 96 sentences. That's 96 more sentences than I would have had. And as you might expect, once I write that first sentence, I usually keep going and write paragraphs. That's great, but it's not my streak, so I don't hold myself accountable for more than one sentence. I am committed to consistently writing 1 sentence a day. That's it. Silly, simple, doable. Rather than think, crap, I've got to write in my journal, I think, today I will have written in my journal for 96 days straight. If I can get to 96, then I can get to 97, 98, and 99. I get to win every day by writing 1 sentence and reading 1 paragraph. I mean, really, how simple is that? One day,
I love this part right here.
She says, one day I did not want to write at all, so I wrote, quote, I don't want to do this stupid activity, quote, 1 sentence, done. Even when we have a bad attitude, we can still keep our streak alive. Even when we're having a hard day, even when you're like, this is stupid, I don't want to do it anymore.
I'm throwing my 2-year-old tantrum right now, and I don't want to do this stupid activity
anymore.
And
yet, in that attitude, you still had a win. That to me is deeply profound and inspiring and encouraging, and able to put it away, move on to the next day. And so I guess the reason that this spoke to me is, so the other day I was listening to somebody talking about the things that they had learned from COVID, through going through the COVID experience and the lockdown and different things, and what we want to take away from what we've learned from this experience. And I was thinking to myself, asking myself, what things have I learned? What do I want to take away from the COVID experience? And I thought, I'm going to go back and read some of the stuff in my journals. What was great is I was able to find, this is the first time I've done this, is I was able to put together all of the journals that I've written in since I started my streak.
Which your streak is similar to June's here?
It is similar to June's. Write 1 sentence in my journal a day.
Okay.
And I started in September. I was able to go back. It took me a minute to gather all the journals because they were kind of in different places in the house. But then I kind of got excited and I wanted to make sure that I had them all. And it was so great to be able to take the last page of one journal and have it be one date, and go to the first page of the next journal, and it was the next day. And by the time I had gathered them all up together, I had my very first journal that I started. I had started it in 2013. I started my streak in 2016. So the first half of that journal, there's probably about 50 or 60 pages of that journal, maybe not even that many, that is just 3 years worth of writing. once I started my streak.
Now, check. We got to slow down for that just for a second. 50 pages, 3 years, represented 3 years.
From 2013 to 2016. I started my streak in 2016, September 7th. I know that now because I went back and looked. I broke it at one point. I missed it. So I had gone into it 200 days and I missed a day. And then I restarted the streak. So my actual number of days on I know this because I went back and calculated it, that my number of days in my app was less than what the date was when I started from my journal. So I went back and I was able to find the day that I missed, which I thought was also amazing. But what was great is as I stacked up these journals, I have 9 journals that I filled.
That represent how many years now? That
represent my streak from 2016, September 7th, 2016 to today.
So it's 5 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when we talk about performance, that to me was a visual of performance. My performance in that thing has increased significantly, and it is because of a streak. The simplicity of write 1 sentence a day has filled 9 journals in 5 years.
What I see is a mindset shift, a significant mindset shift that happened to you, that happened to June, and that happens to any of you who are listening or who have even wanted to dabble in a streak. There's a mindset shift. And she says, she emphasizes, or June talks about this mindset shift right here. She said, think about it. I was not writing in my journal at all. Now, the mindset is if I'm not going to do it good or at a high quality, then I'm not going to do it at all. So shifting that mindset to I'm going to be consistent and use that as a place to start and then progress from there. However, my mindset shift is the consistency, because what she said here, and this is where she captured the mindset shift, now I've written 96 sentences. I've done the thing that I've always wanted to do.
I'm doing it.
But have dismissed it because it's small and simple. What the streaking methodology does is give you absolute permission to win. You can win every single day, even when you write a sentence like, I don't want to do this stupid activity.
Right.
You've won.
You've won. That is amazing, you guys, that you can have I don't want to do this stupid activity be a winnable thing.
And as we talked about last time and emphasize again, it is so much easier to keep a streak alive than it is to start, stops an activity.
So you bring up exactly what I was thinking about, specifically to journal writing. Part of the struggle with when I would sit down to write a journal when I wasn't consistent is you're overwhelmed with the things that have happened that I haven't written about. I would feel guilty that sometimes really big, important things had happened and I hadn't taken the time to write them down. So now, immediately as I sit down, all of these emotions are there. Guilt, I haven't done this. Overwhelmed, I've got to make it big because not only do I want to move forward with what I want to write now, but I feel like I need to make up for what I haven't been doing. So all of this comes into play. And so it takes a lot of inertia. And I would sit down and I would do it. And when I would get done, I never totally felt like I had given it justice, because how do you make up for, the last 5-6 months of not writing anything?
Can I share with you something? Keep going.
But then, yes, almost. Yeah. I'm not quite done yet.
Okay.
I'm almost there.
You keep it going, huh?
So just the inertia of starting it. And then when I get done, I never felt as much satisfaction either, because there was something inside of me that felt a little bit like, well, that was good, but when am I going to have the energy to do this again?
Yeah.
There's something inside that knew, well, I can feel good about it for a little bit, but I wasn't committed to writing tomorrow because I didn't have a streak at that time. Yeah. That's what the streak does is you feel good. You're like, I did it. I completed that streak. And you feel good because you're going to do it tomorrow. That's what she said. I'm going to do it on the 97th day, and I'm going to do it on the 98th day, and I'm going to do it on the 99th day. And even if I go 2 whole weeks and all I do is write 1 sentence, that's still more than what you would have done in that 2 weeks. However, how often she talks about that you do more.
So here's something that I just realized. I have never been annoyed by your streak. Oh. I have never been annoyed since you started writing in your journal. And usually you'll do it at night before we go to bed because you want to capture the things of the day.
I do.
I have never been annoyed by that. It's interesting. The reason why I bring that up is because I celebrate it with you. I know it's your streak. I know that you have a sentence writing. And I also know that if we have something that we need to do, you're totally okay with just writing a sentence. And then we go about, if it's early in the night and we're going out to dinner or something like that.
Right.
And and you're not annoyed because it's not like you're going to miss tomorrow or missed yesterday.
Mm-mm.
And so you totally are able to say, yeah, I'll write that real quick. And then you know that you're going to write tomorrow and can catch up on some of those things. It just dawned on me. I've never, and any of your streaks that you keep alive, I'm celebrating them with you. I look at what it is that you do, and I'm not holding you accountable. That's not my job.
Exactly.
You hold yourself accountable. But what I look at, so with June here, I'm celebrating with her that she has discovered this, because she goes on to talk about, the different streaks that she has and why they're important to her. Because later in the book, we talk about how you really start to consider your streaks as to who you want to be.
Yep.
At first, you look at them as there's things I want to be doing or should be doing that I want to be consistent at. But then as you start to progress and as you start to perform at a higher level, then you start to look a little bit further down inside yourself and say, okay, why am I doing these things? And what is it that I want to do? Well, we're going to have to continue this conversation in the next podcast, because there's a couple things I want to do before we end this podcast. We're coming up right at the end. We have several sources out there for anyone who is wanting to learn more about streaking or striving diligently to get the methodology going. First of all is our website, streakingmastery.com. We have Laurel and Talon and Tyler all published to that. Jamie will publish to that as far as a blog, as we think of different things. Now, Jamie and I's main source of communication is this podcast to you, and that's also on the website at streakingmastery.com. The second thing is, please feel free to follow us on, we've got Pinterest, what's Pinterest? Is it Streaking Mastery at Pinterest, or is it Streaking?
Streaking Mastery.
Okay. We've got Instagram. We've got Facebook. All three of those you can follow, and we're posting that all the time. Feel free to link up with us at LinkedIn. You can look for me at Jeffrey Downs or Jamie Downs, Jami, no E on the end of that, Jamie Downs. And as always, feel free to email us. We get emails, and they're just fantastic as far as streaking stories.
And this is part of why that third law is so important, is that community keeps you going. And you are able to glean encouragement from other people, but then you're also giving that encouragement to others. And that community is a huge component of being able to keep going.
And to celebrate together.
Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's all part of that community.
And the app is a huge community resource, which we'll talk more about. Well, we have enjoyed. June, thank you again for your book review. We appreciate it. Go out, buy the book, share it with a friend, because your friend will be appreciative that you shared with them something that they could win with. Until we talk again,
keep streaking.